Do you have a blind spot about the future that might kill your business overnight, 1 or 2 years down the road before you could see it? That's what we're talking about today, right here, right now. It's On Air Brands.
You are now tuned in to the On Air Brands podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the On Air Brand Show. I am Todd Giannattasio, along with my guest co-host Erik Cabral.
What's going on?
Erik?
Wow, always happy to be back and make a guest appearance on your show, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You know, really, it's your show. I'm just here, happy to be the driver most days. But you know,
Driving the
Amber.
Tesla.
Yeah, Amber got pulled off onto something, and Erik hopped in the seat right away. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Always grateful to have you here and excited to talk about all things business content related and the future and how technology plays into all that stuff and everything like that. And I want to tell a quick story before we dive in here that kind of sets the context. I remember about 10 years ago. So I started my agency 10 years ago, and about maybe 9 years ago, I was sitting down with a local photographer who did like wedding photography, I think mainly, but whatever it was, engagement shoots, etc. And he was asking me questions about, like, you know, how to get on the internet in, 2011, which still, I mean, seems like so late, but now in hindsight was kind of early. And he said, he had a great thriving business because he had a half-page ad in the Knot magazine every year. And that kept him very busy, thriving, etc., until one day it didn't. And he said, literally just getting calls every day, all the time. And one day the phone stopped ringing and it was over because nobody was looking at those half-page ads in the magazines anymore and calling people. They were all using Google and social media, etc., etc. And so we're kind of at another pivoting point here. With the announcement of Facebook switching their parent company name to Meta, which I don't think is a huge deal, to be honest, other than just talking directionally about the vision for their corporation. I don't think it means too much of a change for the individual apps, right? Like Facebook's not going to change dramatically. Instagram's not going to change dramatically. This is the holding company is now called Meta, right?
Yeah, like Alphabet to Google.
Right, exactly. Google did it a few years ago, and most people not in the marketing industry probably don't even know that, like it's a very, very similar. But what I love about what Zuckerberg is doing here, and I'm purely speculating, obviously, but is that similarly to the photographer whose phone stopped ringing and he didn't set himself up for future success. He didn't have a website. He didn't have any Google rankings. He didn't have a social media presence. He was screwed. Overnight, it stopped. And then he had to play catch up to try and get back in the game. And to be honest, I don't talk to him frequently, but from what I can tell from the outside, I don't think he ever really recovered from that. Now think about what Zuckerberg did here. He probably 10 years ago, when the iPhone came out, whenever that was, a couple years in, he realized as a software company, in order to access any software, you need hardware, right? You need computers, you need a phone, whatever, you need devices. So those companies, the hardware companies, are really the gatekeeper, no matter how ubiquitous Amazon or Facebook become, or any other company. If someone doesn't have a device, if the device doesn't allow them to access the stuff that's online, those software companies are out of luck, right?
Absolutely.
And Zuckerberg looks at this, again, I'm purely speculating and giving him props that he maybe doesn't deserve, but does he look at this and say, man, the iPhone is the hardware everyone's going to be using. We need to come out with the Facebook phone. And I think I remember hearing rumors about that at some point, but it never really happened. Amazon did come out with a phone and it flopped, right? Like they couldn't do it. But instead of saying, and maybe he tested and it failed, so they didn't bring it to market. But instead of saying like, all right, Facebook, we got to go all in and create phones because everyone's creating phones today, and let's play catch up. And Rob's chiming in. Microsoft too tried launching a phone and it flopped. Mm-hmm. Let's try catching up with what's happening today in the phone market. He looks down the road 10, 20, 30 years and says, what's going to be the hardware after the phones? And that is virtual reality, right? Now, obviously, it's a huge bet and a long gamble at the time because who knows how that tech will develop. But I'm pretty sure they bought Oculus as a company at the time. I don't think they developed it from scratch, but they get into the VR hardware game early. And today, like, nobody's using VR. Everybody talks, it's like, sounds like a cool thing, but like nobody's walking around with VR headsets on their head. But yet, exactly. So he is so far ahead of the game where they're now developing all that. They're going to be set up so that when the flip switches for people and they're like, man, all right, now these headsets are super dope. I want to get one. I want to be watching I want to be sitting courtside at the Knicks game. Bing bong. You put on your headset and there you are. Or, any vast other things. You're hanging out with your friends in this virtual reality setting, right? He gets ahead. He doesn't try to compete in the present. He's ahead of the game, already sets himself up for success down the road. And now what we see, how they're changing the parent company name to Meta. I think that, like I said, I think that shows directionally where the vision at a corporate level is going to go. But they're ahead, with the foresight to be playing the future game, the long game, and not trying to just catch up with what's happening in the moment when they're not really set up for success that way.
Yeah, skate to where the puck is going, not where it's
Exactly.
been. So that's always been anybody who innovates, anybody, especially somebody who has a lot of experience like Zuckerberg at this point. We can use that as sort of a waypoint. We can use it as a place so that we can figure out what we're doing as business owners and marketers. And if that is where these individuals are going, like Elon Musk, that now he's dictating where the auto industry should be moving. He's been doing it for a decade or more. I mean, and people are just catching on now. Hertz just made the biggest purchase of automotives in the history of purchasing. I think it was like billions. I forgot exactly the number, but that just goes to show any industry, if you're paying attention, you should be ahead of those decisions that are being made by the big dogs.
Right.
But yeah, Todd, what were you saying earlier before the mics turned on about sort of the trends?
Right, exactly. And so you talk about skating to where the puck is going and being ahead and like not getting caught up in like these echo chambers of like, I don't know if this is the right word, but I'll say like new age marketers, right? But like these people who, and I'll say they're probably younger, like they're the people running agencies and they're in their mid to late 20s. So the only game they know is Facebook ads, right? So like they came out, Facebook ads were super cheap, especially compared to all other channels. And it was like, man, I'm going to learn Facebook ads and Facebook ads, Facebook ads, Facebook ads. Well, over the last like 6 to 12 months, Facebook ads have a rising cost. Apple, as a hardware bit, right back to what we were just talking about, Apple has increased their privacy and data blocking stuff. So that's causing Facebook to have some issues with how, with their pricing and optimization and all that. And I'm starting to see these people who were this one track Facebook marketing all of a sudden start preaching like legit. And I'm not going to name names because I do respect a lot of these people. And I think they come from a good place and they do have good ideas. The thing that bothers me is that they're calling them new ideas. And these Facebook marketers who are now coming out and saying like the quote unquote next big thing, the new thing you have to do is you have to be a content creator and you have to put out valuable content and all this kind of stuff. The stuff that you and I, Eric, have been preaching for years.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's what On Air Brands is here to help you guys create great content to add value to the world and help you build your business. But these people with, on their soapboxes are creating this context for business owners and entrepreneurs who aren't in the know on a regular basis, where they're like, oh, this is something new. Let me follow these people. And then they follow someone who doesn't have the 10 years of experience like you or I do. And they're trying to figure it out on the spot. And it's like, no, we've been looking at this and playing this game for years. And when I hear them, I see like, oh, the next new thing, the podcast episode, the next new thing you need to know. If you're not doing this next, your business is going to collapse. And then I hear it and it's like, you have to be creating content regularly. I'm like, that's your new thing.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys.
I mean, so to defend them, and I'm with you, Todd. What we're witnessing is a pivot, right? As business owners, whether you're a solopreneur running Facebook ads for your clients, I see that this looks like a pivot. You're trying to figure out how to continue making money because as you mentioned earlier, the light switch is being turned off, or at least
Right.
dimmed for the moment,
Yeah.
and potentially will go dark. That's why, as business owners, you have to be diverse. You have to
Dude,
have multiple streams of
I
income.
just wrote that down as my thing to say. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so you can't put all your eggs in one basket. And if Facebook shuts the light off, or Apple shuts the light off, you still have streams of revenue. So this is a lesson learned for anybody out there who's panicking, right?
Yeah.
They're panicking because they're like, oh, we need to. The thing is, so I'm going to speak to the other side of the
Mhm.
clients that have hired people who are Facebook marketers, and they're
Mhm.
now saying, hey, Jim, you need to be a content creator. Guess what? I can help you. No, hey,
Right.
Jim, look around, because there are people who are creating content, have been doing it for years,
Yeah.
and know how to do it. They do it for themselves and they do it for others, and not necessarily look for, because personally, I am not a Facebook marketer, and I don't
Right.
claim to be, right. That's we lean on experts like Todd
Mhm.
to do those things. So for a Facebook marketer to say, hey, I am a creator of content and I could do that for you because I'm an expert, you might want to start looking around and kicking some tires. That's all I'm gonna
Right.
say.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And look, like I said, their message, the spirit of the message is a good one, and it's just one that we've been preaching for so long. It's like, yes,
Yeah,
you do
not new.
need to be creating content. It's
Yeah.
not the new whiz bang growth hack though. This is the tried and true principles of forever. It's
Yeah.
show up and add value for the audience you want to build. Whether that's
Yeah.
like literally on the soapbox in the town square, or modern day creating your podcast, right? And like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It's changing the world one mic at a time. And
There you
of
go.
course, shameless plug for On Air Brands. If you guys are ready to start, getting on the mic and creating your content through podcasts, hit up Erik at onairbrands.com, because that's his, expertise. That's what we do at On Air
Appreciate that.
Brands.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not new. It's something that's been around. You don't need to go with somebody who's, acting Chicken Little, the sky's falling because of these things. They might feel that way, or maybe they're positioning it that way as a scarcity tactic. But this is not anything new.
Yeah, yeah. So for those, let's maybe talk to both audiences, right? There's
Mhm.
the Facebook marketers who are like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do now? I gotta make money somehow. And
Right.
then if we could speak to the entrepreneur, that's like,
Mhm.
that was a mainstream of revenue for them to
Yeah.
get leads, to source cold leads.
Sure.
So Todd, what would you say to the Facebook marketers out there, that are touting this as a new thing? Like, what are some options they should start, researching and looking into, other than saying they turned over a rock
Well,
and they just discovered
the
something?
good news is there's plenty of resources available because it's not brand new, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
HubSpot coined the term inbound marketing, I don't know, 10 years ago, I think maybe longer than that, right? So, that they've been preaching this for a long time. Content Marketing Institute is a great place, a great website with a bunch of great resources. Looking into content marketing is, do a Google search and you'll find a ton of great stuff there. There's a lot of great resources on how to plan out content, and what you really want to focus on is, one, diversifying, and two, not building on rented land. Those are the two
Mhm.
main things, right?
Love
Is
that.
that, as someone who's very savvy in the real estate investment world, with wearing your capital hacking shirt today appropriately, right? Like, it's very similar. It's, if you are building your business on rented land, like Facebook, you don't own Facebook, you don't own the access to your audience, you don't own that at all. You're putting yourself at risk, where the landlord one day, and this did happen, I forget what year, but where you used to be able to post on your Facebook page and your fans would see it. Makes logical sense that would happen.
Yeah.
But then Facebook said, no, 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 you're a business. No more organic reach. So if you have fans that like your Facebook page and you post on your Facebook page, they're not going to see it. We're not going to show
Mm.
that content in the news feed. It's a very, like, 1% of things, of your fans will see it. Right. So organic Facebook, the rug got pulled out, and if and then you had to pay. I still think it's, even still today, as the rising cost, if you have a proper business strategy, it's still very affordable. Probably one of the most affordable ways to market your business in the world. But it's not building on rented land, so the landlord can't change the rules up on you one day and you get screwed, right? So making sure that you own your assets, which is just the importance of having a solid website, publishing content on your website, building your email list, and then using social media, using rented land to reach your audience and pull them back in. So you have a whole ecosystem, right?
Mhm.
And diversifying, right? So, like, having a place like a Facebook plus a YouTube, having your podcast plus Instagram, right? It's having multiple places of reaching your audience, so that, again, one, you're driving them all back to an email list and website so that you can own the audience regardless. And also having just at least 2 places, or just 1.5, like go all in on Instagram, but also be having having a YouTube channel that gets content, even if that's not where you're putting 100% of your resources. But that's where I think you need no rented land, and diversifying, just like real estate.
Yeah, yeah. I back all that up, but I want to add that content creation has always been sort of the solution for any business owner, anybody who wants to put something out there that adds value to people's life or their business. So once you create the content, and let's call it a podcast, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a podcast, because what you're doing is that is the main source. When you turn the video on, you turn the camera, the mics on, you are creating content that can help people. So what you want to do is, yes, podcast is one vehicle, but I always recommend that, like you said, you chop it up, you make videos, and you push it out on all platforms, not just YouTube, but Instagram, on, TikTok, if that's your thing, and all these other platforms, so that if the lights turn off, they're not going to turn off on everything at the same time, at least. And what you're going to do is you're still going to have your message being poured out there, right?
Yeah.
So if, say, Instagram goes down, which would be Facebook too, you're still on YouTube, you're still on Spotify and iTunes, and all
which
these
did
other
happen a couple weeks ago. Instagram
Yeah.
and Facebook were down
Very
for
true.
a day.
Very true. And here's the thing. If you're doing video and audio content, I highly recommend you also put it in written form. So now, like as Todd said, on your website, you should have a blog that's transcribing every single episode and creating more SEO optimized content on the web page based off of your podcast episodes. And that's a continuous, flow and a machine that you can get going if you're doing it right. So then there's also, don't forget, LinkedIn is coming up. That is what Facebook was 12 years ago to me. And everyone is there. Now, if you're one of those that is abusing the DM, shame on you, because you are very intimate with my DMs, and they're having relationships with my DM, and I look in there to having a conversation with themselves. Slow down. That is everybody's onto that. But anyway, LinkedIn, if you can create organic content, go live on LinkedIn, start leveraging other platforms, so that if Facebook or another platform goes down, like we were saying, you're diverse and you're repurposing all the content created based off a podcast or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, totally. And this is another brilliant idea, right? Is what about if you made your content so good that if Instagram went down, people are like, oh man, I still want to see stuff from Erik. Let me go and look him up on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, whatever else is still up at the time, right? Or go back to the website, because you're creating a relationship with your audience by adding so much value that when they can't reach you in one place, it's not that they're just scrolling through Instagram because they got 7 minutes to kill, but that they're like, oh man, I miss the tips from Erik today. Let me go and look up where else I might be able to see what he talked about today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that this is something, I was reminded of this idea that I used to teach in some email marketing workshops I was doing, is that everyone, when you talk about how do you improve your email marketing numbers, your open rates and clicks and blah, blah, blah. And it's oh, you Google that and here's what you're going to find. Best times to send emails, best subject lines to get opens, right? All that kind of stuff. But the real best answer is the from name of the email is someone that has a relationship with the person who's receiving it. Because if I said to you, what was the subject line of the last email your wife forwarded you? Or what time did your best friend send the last email you read? Guess what? I couldn't tell you, and it doesn't matter, because I saw that I got an email from my wife, so I opened it. I saw that Sean sent me an email, I opened it. Right? It had the name trumped everything else about it because of the relationship I had with the person. So when you can build a strong enough relationship with your audience, then one channel going down doesn't matter as long as you're up and available somewhere else, right? That's really the key.
So the thing is, Todd, I want to bring up to people out there. Yeah, that's great advice. But then there are people who are abusing it on other platforms. So, for
Right.
example, I get messaged either through Instagram or LinkedIn, and it's someone that I know personally. Like I literally just hung out with you, and I'm
Yeah.
getting automated messages that say,
Yeah.
"Hey, um, I saw
Yeah.
that you visited our website. It
Right.
would be great to set up a call. How can I
Yeah.
help you?" I'm like, "Dude, we just hung out."
Yeah.
So I'm like, "This is kind of annoying."
Yeah.
And there's got to be a better way because there are people that are just automating messages to people that they already know and are
Yeah.
close to, and it kind of puts a bitter taste in your mouth. So just be cautious. I'm saying of like when you start jumping into automation.
Yeah.
I don't know, Todd. Maybe you can answer this, but maybe is there a way to flag the top 25 people that I'm closest with and do not message them as if you don't know them? Because I always get back to I write back and I'm like, hey man,
Yeah.
I actually have this person's direct information, like phone number.
Right.
So you don't
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
message me with this
Yeah.
fake
Yeah.
number. Like I know him personally.
Yeah, I've gotten those on LinkedIn. When it comes, email, like in an email system, 100% you can easily tag people a certain way and then exclude them from things. That's super easy in any of the modern stuff, Active Campaign, ConvertKit, et cetera, whatever. When it comes to the social media messaging automation, I can't really speak to that because I never got into it because of that. Like that doesn't feel to me the only way that I ever consider using it is on a new connection to start a conversation, which I would do the same way with everybody. Like the first message would be like, "Hey, Erik, thanks for connecting, man. Like, what kind of stuff are you working on now?" And then once you replied to that, I would then pick it up personally and so, you know, maybe I would use it to automate something that I could do that way. But I don't love DM automations unless, of course, also that you're like running a clear like, "Hey, welcome to the On Air Brands bot. How can we help you today?" Like if you're very clear, like that it's automated and it's some kind
Yeah.
of thing like that. But I'm not sure that you can exclude people that you have a relationship with. And then it also adds in this whole layer of like, all right, are you going to be keeping up regularly with every morning? You're going to go in and be like, "Oh, I texted with Erik yesterday. Let me make sure he doesn't get these." Like it seems like too much to keep up with. So I don't know. To me, I'm too and I'm also like heavy bias towards the like personal relationship side of
Yeah.
things. So take whatever I say with a grain of salt on that. Like there are ways you could automate and scale, but to me, I just don't touch those things because that stuff does look kind of silly. I've gotten messages on LinkedIn from people who, like you just said, they reached out to me. Hey, I see this and it seemed legit. I replied back, "Cool, man. Yeah, let's chat." We hop on, we talk, this or that, nothing immediate, keep in touch, whatever. And then like 30 days from the previous message, "Hey, Todd, I see you're interested in fill in the blank," right? Like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, like you said, like we already talked, man. Like, take me off this.
Yeah. I mean, the only bit of advice that I can imagine would be, I mean, you have to be authentic, right? And that's the thing.
Right.
When you get these messages from people, people could sniff it, right?
Right.
They can sense there's something off, and that if you're parading and your content or your direct messages are parading as if you're someone when you're not, you're really the sales guy that's like falling underneath
Right.
a well-known name or a person that's got relationships. I would recommend that. So, for example, if someone on LinkedIn was working for me and it was a sales guy, I would recommend those messages say, "Hey, I work with Erik,
Right.
and he's interested in chatting with you about XYZ," versus saying you're me or saying you're
Oh
that
yeah.
person.
Oh wow.
Because
Yeah. Definitely
because
not pretending to
yeah,
be somebody else.
because look, these are people that I know personally, and it's kind of annoying. Like I say to them, I'll message them later. I'm like, dude, your automation, marketing is actually a little bit offensive,
Yeah.
just because like I literally just hung out with you, or you emailed me personally, and then I'm
Right.
getting all these messages, and it's
Right.
just distracting.
And
So
if it
yeah,
were someone like if I got it, like if that were to happen accidentally from your account, we have such a good relationship already. Like we're good friends. I would text you be like, "Yo, dude, this just came through. Fix it or whatever." As
yeah,
opposed to like, what if it was a legitimate new business opportunity that would ruin it? Like if I had one, like let's say we had one 30-minute phone call and I was like, "Yeah, I think we got some good opportunities here. Let's schedule something. Let's talk again, in a week or whatever. Let's keep the ball moving." And then I get like one of those like, cold, tone deaf messages. Now I'm like, I don't know if I want to do business with this guy. We
Yeah.
already, this is this, that's the vibe I'm getting here. Like that, I'm not cool with this. So,
Yeah.
it's definitely can, be very detrimental. So definitely make sure that you have your strategy across the board, diversified, strategic, holistic. Like this is what I've always said, right? Like you have to have a holistic approach to building your business. You have to make sure that none of these things are siloed, be authentic, add, bring value to the world and come from a place of service. And that's how you create expansion.
Yeah, 100%. I think, and this goes with all sort of marketing in terms of like emails or cold calls or anything where text messages. That's a big thing, especially in real estate, where it's cold.
Dude,
it's cold.
I gotta ask you about something.
Yeah, and
finish your thought, and let me come back to the texting for real estate.
Don't forget. So I get messages from all different sort of avenues, and so I would highly recommend if you're writing content for cold messaging, it's a cold outreach. That's okay. Say, hey, I'm Jamie from XYZ company. I'm introducing myself. Okay. Those are people that don't know about the company potentially or know who you are, Jamie. That's all right. But then if Jamie is going to talk to warm to hot leads, now reference someone that they, if there's a personality within the business that has the relationships already established. Now, this is where you say it. I'm saying it again. Hey, this is Jamie from XYZ company. I'm friends with or I work with Todd. And then now, there's no dishonesty here. Like I'm just telling you straight up, like all these people who are messaging and calling and texting as if you're the person that I already know. I'm sorry, I'm just keep driving this home, but it is frustrating. And the thing is, it's not a cold where I am not a cold lead.
Right.
I am
or even just say like in the message too, you could even say like, I work with Erik. I'm not sure if you guys have spoken recently, but I want to make sure that I reach out to you so that you're in the know. Like just say that straight up.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So like, what was your question?
All right. So I'm not big on text message marketing. I find my text message inbox, quote unquote, to be like a sacred place where I really don't like giving out my number to people. And I have been getting cold text messages asking if I'd be interested in selling my house. Now, I have to imagine that they're spam, but being that I slightly half dabble in the real estate world now through you and some of our other friends there, I have, when I do the research on marketing, I do see there are some people who suggest like do cold outreach to people to see if they want to buy their house. And like, people don't answer the phone today, so you should text them. So I'm like, am I really getting a text message from like a random dude who actually wants to buy my house? Or is this like, I imagine has to be spam?
Yeah. I mean, they bought a list, right? These investors bought a list and they are marketing. It's all cold outreach. They don't necessarily genuinely, yes, they want to buy your house. They want the opportunity,
but they're blasting out to thousands of people and whoever texts back,
of
like
people,
whatever.
depending. Yeah, exactly. And it's a method. It's a they get a lot of responses, I'm sure, to say, hey, F you, or like, people get offended by that, especially if they don't have interest, but they're looking for that 1 out of 1,000 that's going to say, you know what, I was thinking about, what you got, I'm thinking about selling. So it's a numbers game when it comes to cold outreach, like in any business, but especially in real estate.
Yeah. So, a couple key things like we talked about, we started the episode about like, is the blind spot of the future going to kill your business overnight? Like when things happen, and, protect yourself from those by diversification, owning your audience, creating content assets that you can use for life in a bunch of different ways. Make sure that you're just putting out stuff that builds a relationship with an audience so that no matter what happens to different channels, people will still want to come look for you and they'll miss you when you're gone. I think Seth Godin says that, if you stopped your marketing, would anyone notice? And I think, other stuff is, always think in the long game, right? Like practicing the short game. I'm putting together a free training, I'm calling it the digital flywheel. And it's about creating long-term sustainable success, but creating wins in the short game. And that there's like a little illustration about income and assets, right? Where it's like, there's people who like have their income and it goes the arrow directly into your expenses and lifestyle costs. And then there's the other one where it's like your income you should use to buy assets, and then your earnings from your assets is where you create your lifestyle costs, right? And that's like how to develop wealth or whatever. And so what I'm thinking about, like a similar kind of graphic where it's like, if you like just focus on like direct cold sales, short term, like, are these people going to buy it in the next day or two? No, I'm moving on. Like, and you just burn it out. Like, that's the like income directly to a sale versus your marketing and branding and podcasting, creating content, building relationships with the audience. You do the work that goes into the asset, and then you have in perpetuity compound growth in your revenue and your business. So, that's kind of the way that I think about things, and always just going back to principles over tactics, right? Like if you were showing up through Facebook ads by creating great content and adding value, all right, well, now the channel might change where Facebook ads aren't as profitable for you. So you have to move to, trying organic LinkedIn or trying, moving directly to Instagram, even though it's under the same parent, whatever, like trying different channels, but your principle is still the same, where you still are just showing up, adding value. So the strategy and the principles are long-term. You could stick to them. Right. And, something that is, the innovation, I think the 80-20 rule applies to everything. It's like, if you could spend 20% of your time / 20% of your budget, even if it's a little less than that, just looking at like what's coming up next, right? Like Gary Vee, I don't know if he still talks about this. I don't really keep up with him on a daily basis anymore, but he used to always say like I don't know how often, once a week, go to the new apps and see what are the most downloaded apps this week and download them and play with them, right? Like see what's coming up next. And that it helps you in a couple ways. One, you see where the puck is going. You'll see these trends and of what people are starting to get into, even if 99% of them disappear quickly. You see the trend and direction. And now when something does pop off, you were kind of prepared because there was all these little baby steps in that direction. And it's also something I think he used to say, probably still says, but like practicing the new things. Like, all right, for people who were on Vine, which was like the 6-second videos, right? Like, and it did blow up. It was huge. And then it just, again, rented land, like got pulled out and turned off kind of out of nowhere and almost for no reason. I mean, obviously, I guess they weren't making enough money, but the people who got huge on Vine built up skill. Even if you didn't get huge on Vine, if you just used Vine regularly, you built up these new muscles of short form content creation. That, guess what? That's what TikTok and Instagram Reels are. So if that's not wasted time. It's new experience and new muscles for the direction that the world and society are going in. And so keeping up with, like, keep your eye on what could potentially be happening down the road and kind of dabble a little bit so that when the new thing blows up, you're not completely in the dark, but you've kind of, you've been inching your way towards it in hindsight, in the back of your mind.
Yeah. I mean, as marketers, definitely, especially, anybody out there who's created a business around digital marketing, you should always be on top of these things.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a business owner that doesn't necessarily have the time or the interest in digital marketing or different strategies and tactics, surround yourself with people who are well-versed in it. Hang with Todd, or, message and email and have a relationship with those who are always, their fingers always on the pulse. So that this way they can inform you about what's about to happen, what's going to occur. The Oculus thing, I could have called that. I definitely recognize that. I bought one, the very first sort of affordable version of it, like a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, NFTs now to me
exactly
makes sense. Now I get it. I never really fully understood NFTs until I started thinking about it in relationship to Meta and the virtual universe, and how, like, you're going to be able to walk through environments where you own a piece, you own artwork in the, just like when you go into a video game and you buy swords and you buy castles and you buy whatever it is with real money, by the way, in a virtual world. That's what NFTs are now. I'm like, wow, light bulb. So
that's only one. I mean, I could really go off on a whole tangent because I've been really trying to study the whole NFTs and crypto thing over the last couple of weeks to get a grip. And I could go off on a whole thing about that. And people right now are so geeky on it, like, because the only people who really understand it fully are the people who are creating them, like creating the technology. And the problem is, if I told you in 1995, your business has to have a website or else you're going to go under. And they're like, oh, what's a website? And I said, oh, a website is HTML code, so I can write bracket P bracket and then start typing words and then close bracket and then bracket image. You're gonna be like, what? And I feel like that's how people are currently explaining crypto and NFTs. They're
Yeah.
talking about like the stuff that as quote unquote end users or whatever, like it's not like I guess maybe we need to know. I don't know, but it, as opposed to saying like if you want to have access to a membership program, then you're going to have to buy it via an NFT. Oh, that it's an NFT is a license or a ticket for access to things. It's a digital way to do that. Oh, okay, I get it. It's not like, oh, well, on the blockchain it creates this whole like when people start talking about that, it's like, all right,
yeah.
you don't really need to know that stuff. So
You don't need to know how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Tell me the outcome. What's the purpose? And people aren't really clear on that.
Yeah.
Like you said, the creators are clear. You
and
know,
it's
they
still,
know.
and look, there's new ways coming up all the time because it is new technology. How's it going to be used and all that? Like, you know, so it is. But yeah, you know, surrounding yourself. And I'll say too, like, it's not just about marketing, but as a business owner and entrepreneur, and like the people that are listening to us and that we talk to, like they're visionary people looking to create the future. And it's not just about like, how can you use this stuff to market, but also like, how might your business need to pivot in terms of doing this, right? Like, and you know, I don't know, for real estate, like it's understanding like, all right, we're going to have to start developing VR tours of our places, right? Like that's a very simple thing. And it's like, if you never heard of VR before and all of a sudden everyone's doing VR tours, you're screwed, right? But like, you know, or whatever. So, you know, it's not just about marketing, but it's about business and how people are interacting in the world so that you can create innovative solutions and stay ahead of the game.
Absolutely, man.
All right, we were all over the place today, but it was a fun discussion, and I think we had some good value tips for everybody. But really, it's add value, play the long game, look at the big picture. Don't build your business on rented land. All the same stuff we've always been talking about. The sky's not falling. The principles from 1,000 years ago still hold true today, and that's how we try to bring them to you in today's modern world. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the show. If you are ready to hop on and become that content creator and get on the mic, get in front of the camera, hit up Erik and his team onairbrands.com so that you can start your show and you can help him on his mission to change the world one mic at a time. And we will catch you guys on the next episode.
Tuned in to the On Air Brands podcast.